Now, let's talk about William and Kate, because the way that they are playing the game is pretty clever at the moment, certainly in terms of their produced social media. But what do you think is their next play? How do they make sure that they can actually connect to the next generation? Because one of the great difficulties for the king is trying to work out how this all exists in the 21st century as opposed to the reverence that had all been there for his mother. But the real challenge seems to be for the next monarch after that may be decades down the line, about how you remain relevant. Do they go the celebrity route? Do they go the charity route? Or do they have to actually change the game a little bit and maybe get off their backside and do something slightly unroyal-like to prove that they are people who get it?
Well, you're right. I mean, I think they might have to start thinking outside the box, because it is the big question. I mean, we've had the commemorations and which went across the nation and indeed across the world for the late Queen's passing. Then, of course, we've just had the coronation, and that seemed to sort of snowball one into the other. And now we have a period where a lot of people are asking, what is next for the monarchy? What will next be next for the king? Where will he go on his first trips abroad? Hopefully to Australia, so I can come and see you guys. But a big question is, where does the other people fit in? And certainly William and Kate are a major factor in that. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about slimmed down monarchy for many years of Charles. He believed that the monarchy was slightly bloated. However, by no fault of his own, his brother has had to step back, which we've just discussed. Harry and Meghan have left to seek fame and fortune on the other side of the world. So the main players, as it were, are far and few between. Now, William and Kate are that sort of avenue into the next generation, aren't they? The TikTok generation, if you will. And we're seeing sort of slow baby steps of them trying to reinvent themselves, new social media videos, new campaigns for their main project. But I do think they're going to have to sort of think outside the box. I do think they're going to have to think about a bigger plan than they would have had to, sort of just what was in front of them. And maybe, looking 10 years ahead to see how they can shape the monarchy. Because, Charles is a 74-year-old man. And, it's going to be up to William to have it all on his shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I get the sense that they've got to start to show the 40-hour working week of it all. The 5 days a week, 8 hours a day nature of what they do. Now, I know that sort of in previous times, scarcity is part of the power, but we don't live in that era anymore. People tell us what they have for dinner constantly in the social media age. And while I'm not advocating a live feed from their castle or a reality show on MTV, I think that, again, it's not just about turning up and waving. It's about showing, hey, this is what I did with my week, and this is how I helped somebody else this week. And by that, I don't just mean, wishing somebody who's, forlorn or sick in a hospital bed all the best.
Well, it's funny you mentioned reality shows, because I think it was the late Prince Philip who first had that idea. And I think, if I'm right, it was in 1969 that he invited the cameras into Buckingham Palace. And it was basically an unmitigated disaster that he said they should have never done it. They're never doing that again. And then slowly but surely, sort of the curtain was lifted about royal life. And I think, listen, we're in a very different world to what we were 3, 4, 5 years ago. I mean, we've had COVID, the invention of Zoom, everybody on sort of video calls. We had the late Queen doing it, then William and Kate. And I think that they can have a wider reach. And they're probably right in some sense. We see the social media videos, a big following on Instagram, not necessarily on TikTok at the moment. I'm not sure whether they will go down that avenue, but what are they doing day to day? And those questions are certainly being asked. Now, if you speak to the people at the palace like I do, they'll tell you, of course, they're super busy, 5 days a week, working on big projects, trying to make the biggest impact as possible. But I think you're right. It's not going to be enough to just turn up at the local supermarket or the local charity and cut a ribbon. People want to see that change what they're making, and with few people within the main set of the monarchy, it's there's more pressure on their soldiers. So I do have some sympathy with them, but again, I do think they're going to have to break the mold somewhat.
Yeah, agree completely. While, of course, not becoming overtly political, because then everyone blows up that future monarch ends up having an opinion, as we had in the lead up to Charles becoming king, and then, of course, the early days of him as monarch. Now, let's talk about Prince Harry, because he's had a disappointment from his perspective out of the courts. He wanted the British taxpayer to help provide him with security, or even to be able to pay for the use of police whenever he turns up in the UK. But it seems, of course, that according to his own statements, the problems are outside of the UK. So not only did he lose the case, but he kind of lost the point of the case before he even got into the courtroom for the final time.
Well, it's a bit of a muddle, to be honest, and this is the latest run in Prince Harry's court actions with the British government. He has basically lost the latest one, which is a judge has ruled that he can go no further with his application to pay for British police officers when in the UK. And this stems from his court action that he brought against the Home Office to when they stripped him of his taxpayer-funded security, because he's no longer a working royal. And when that did happen, those rights got stripped away from him. So, this is, again, a long-running saga for Harry. And I don't know where it ends for him, because there's many court cases going on. We've seen him in the UK at a one against a newspaper. He's taken the British government to court, and I don't see an end at the moment for him. But very, very interesting, I saw during the week about Princess Anne's, relationship with him. We saw Princess Anne sat next to him on the same row during the King's coronation, and pretty much she's one of his only allies left at the moment. And it's a pretty sad situation for Harry, because he's stuck over in the States. He feels he can't come back to the UK. He can't travel because he doesn't feel safe. And very, very quick trip for the King's coronation, about 24 hours in and out. Didn't spend time with his dad or with the rest of his family. So your guess is as good as mine where that relationship goes at the moment.
That reporting around Anne is the assumption that because she hasn't said something nasty, she therefore is, one of the final connections, or is there some suggestion that there is contact still happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the contact, but I think the evidence is that she was the first and only person to greet him at Balmoral when he eventually got there. I mean, the rest of the royals had travelled up separately to him. He was left behind to fly up on his own. I mean, he said in his book that he found out about the Queen's death by opening his phone and seeing a news alert. Then when he got to the castle, she took him up to pay his final respects. And we saw, didn't we, in the video in the live stream when the King's coronation was taking place, that she was pretty much one of the only members of the family to be talking to him, as well as Eugenie's husband, Jack Brooksbank. And his sort of circle within the family has grown smaller and smaller, I think, as the years have gone on since he's left. So maybe she is still speaking to him, maybe she is his avenue, and you never know. One day she could be his avenue back into the fold, but I don't think it will be anytime soon.
Best family WhatsApp ever, the Windsors. One day, Russell Myers will crack it open, we'll read about it in the Mirror, and we'll talk about it here on Sky News. All the best, mate. Talk soon.